couple key themes, right? We're going to be talking about balancing the pros and cons of the cloud. We're going to be talking about the key elements of successful relationships with cloud vendors, and then cloud negotiations. But we're going to jump right in right now, which is what are the top business and IT benefits you've actually realized from the cloud? Lance, let's start with you if you don't mind, and then we can move forward.
Here, like I was thinking about the pros. I think it's kind of the obvious stuff, right? Like just the simplification that we get from it. So we're no longer having to worry about a bunch of infrastructure to support these applications. We're no longer having to worry about upgrades of these systems over time. And, that just then lends itself to much more cost predictability over time, right? Like we're not going back to the well if we're asking for capital to upgrade a certain system every 4 years or every 5 years. So for me, it's really just about that simplification and then the predictability of how the IT spend is going to look with these particular vendors.
I'll hit on one thing maybe that hadn't been covered is really around some of the maturity that it gives us on just high availability. They've got availability zones or multiple regions or in multiple data centers, and architecting even whether it's infrastructure or it's different workloads or platforms out there with kind of cloud first in mind going into it, you can get added benefit either HA or DR for little to nothing. Certainly not even touching the cost of traditional DR programs. So that was a real benefit as we moved some of our HR systems over. Our SVP of HR was just like, I get this, it's going to be a little bit cheaper, and I get disaster recovery, and it's going to be high availability because it's in multiple regions for us. So that'd be one that I'd add as a definite benefit that maybe we didn't put enough emphasis on as a true benefit to the company.
And so maybe Wanda, let's start with you on this one, if that's all right. Just thoughts on that. What's successful? What does that look like to you? What does it mean to you? Love to hear that.
Yeah. From making it successful, I think really investing in the relationships and making sure that there's ongoing continuous feedback in terms of how they're performing. Are they aligned to our outcomes versus their profits? So really making sure that we're driving to consistent outcomes. I think that's critical, and making sure we're having governance meetings, quarterly reviews, just ongoing check-ins to make sure they're vested and we're invested in the relationship.
And I'd like to also understand, not just from the perspective of what maybe yourselves were doing or your companies were doing, but what was successful that they did, right? Like what the cloud vendors were doing that helped this become successful as well. And Ross, how about yourself? Thoughts on this?
I wholeheartedly agree with Steve on the plan, both the plan and understanding that it doesn't start, at the end when you're ready to figure out the cost. It starts at the beginning in terms of, setting the stage for how the conversations are going to go. And it's not the negotiation itself, but even just the whole engagement, letting them know, making sure they know that you have alternatives and you're serious about the alternatives. And then also I would say knowing with your business partners, where can you be flexible, understanding that, because the flexibility may not be always where you think it is, from an IT perspective, whether it's cost or technical, aspects of it. You got to think about those commercial terms as well. And where's the flexibility that the business partner within your organization might want flexibility and value that flexibility.